A man almost spent it on a cup of coffee. Instead, it ended up shocking the entire coin collecting world. Because this wasn't just any penny. This was a 1961 Lincoln cent with a rare D mint mark, and it sold for over $1 million. Back in 1961, the Denver Mint was churning out billions of pennies. Workers were under pressure, dies were worn, and mistakes slipped through. Among them was a small run of Lincoln cents that bore a mint mark error so unusual, most people overlooked it entirely, but here's where it gets fascinating. One collector decades later spotted something off. The D mint mark on his penny didn't look like the rest. It was doubled, slightly tilted, almost like it had been punched more than once by mistake. To the untrained eye, it was nothing. To experts, it was everything. When this error penny was authenticated, the bidding wars began. People whispered, "This can't be real." But it was. And the hammer dropped for a figure no one saw coming, more than $1 million for a single 1-cent piece. Collectors were shocked. Newspapers called it the coin that should never have existed. And suddenly, ordinary people started tearing through their change jars, desperate to find another one. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The mint mark. That little D under the date. If it looks doubled, off-center, or unusually thick, you might be holding the key to a fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And here's the part that gives every collector chills: experts believe there are still more of these pennies out there. Sitting in drawers, piggy banks, or forgotten rolls. Think about it. A coin worth $1 million hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary copper. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, and collectors are obsessed with uncovering the next one. But here's the warning: thousands of regular 1961 D pennies exist, and most are worth only a cent or two. Don't be fooled. The rare ones are defined by that doubled mint mark, bold, crisp, and unmistakable under magnification, and yet, that's not the only secret. Some experts believe there are slight die variations, subtle flaws in the lettering and edges that make certain examples even more desirable. These whispers fuel the hunt. Every coin roll search feels like opening a treasure chest. Imagine this: you're at a garage sale, you buy a jar of coins for $5. Buried inside, a 1961 penny catches your eye. You look closer, and that mint mark isn't right. In that moment, your life changes. That little copper coin could pay off your house, your debts, even your retirement. But what if you walk past it? What if you toss it back without noticing? That's the chilling part. The coin that could have saved you might already have slipped through your fingers. Collectors will tell you, the thrill is in the chase. The suspense of flipping each coin, hoping, praying, imagining. And then the heart-stopping moment when something looks different. So how do you know if you found the right one? Look at the date, 1961. Look directly beneath it. Is there a D mint mark? If so, take a magnifying glass. Study it carefully. If it appears doubled, slightly offset, or has an unusual thickness, don't spend it. Don't even touch it without gloves. Because that's the error. That's the mark of $1 million penny. Collectors are still buzzing about it. Some say the next discovery could break records again. Others warn that every year, fewer chances remain to find one in circulation. But the truth is, it only takes one coin. One penny. This exact penny, the 1961 D with a doubled mint mark, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. A simple penny, struck in 1962, carrying a tiny mark most people would never notice. A detail so small, so strange, it almost looks like an accident. And yet, that accident changed everything. They call it the RIT D mint mark Lincoln penny. A coin so rare that even seasoned dealers still argue over how it slipped out of the U.S. Mint at all. Some say it was a mispunched mint mark, a Denver D stamped so poorly it transformed into letters resembling RIT. Others whisper that it was a private engraving error, never meant for circulation. But one fact is certain: the few that exist today have stunned the coin world. One man in Colorado claimed he found his in a jar of old pennies he inherited from his grandfather. At first glance, it looked like just another copper cent. But under the right light, that bizarre mint mark glimmered back at him, spelling out something that had no business being on U.S. currency, and what happened next stunned even the experts. Word spread. Dealers lined up to see it with their own eyes. Auction houses began making offers that climbed higher and higher. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Until finally, one lucky penny sold for nearly $1.2 million, but here's where it gets even more mysterious. Most people walk past this coin every single day without realizing it. Millions of 1962 Lincoln pennies were struck at the Denver Mint. Most look perfectly ordinary. But hidden among them, just a handful carry this odd, ghost-like, Writ D signature. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent, and a penny worth $1 million, is no more than the width of a hairline. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. The phones at auction houses rang non-stop. And ordinary people, everyday Americans, started checking their change again, desperate to find what could be the lottery ticket of numismatics. But what makes it so valuable isn't just rarity. It's the mystery. No official records explain how or why this anomaly happened. And when something slips through the minting process that shouldn't exist at all, that's when collectors lose their minds. That's when prices skyrocket. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The letters are faint, sometimes tilted, almost as if they're trying to disappear into the copper surface. You have to hold the coin at an angle, sometimes under magnification, to see the Writ shadow forming around the Denver D. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. But how do you know for sure? Here's the test. First, check the date, 1962. Then, look just below it, at the mint mark. If you see the standard D, you likely have a common penny. But if the D looks doubled, stretched, or oddly shaped into something resembling letters, stop everything. That coin needs to be authenticated. Don't clean it, don't polish it, you could destroy its value. Simply protect it and get it to a trusted coin dealer or grading service. Collectors warn about one mistake above all, confusing normal wear and tear with the Writ D anomaly. Scratches, dents, or random marks don't count. But if the lettering is clear, even faintly, you may be holding one of the most valuable error coins in American history, and that's why collectors call it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because no one knows how many are still out there. Maybe a handful. Maybe only 1 or 2. But every day, pocket change is being spent, jars of coins are being cashed in, and hidden treasures are disappearing before anyone even looks twice. So before you dismiss the pennies and why check every penny. Look twice. Because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding an ordinary 1964 Lincoln penny. Copper. Familiar. The kind you've seen 1,000 times before. But hidden among the countless billions minted that year, is one of the rarest treasures in American coin history. Collectors call it the 1964 Writ D mint mark penny. A coin shrouded in mystery, surrounded by whispers of minting mistakes, and forever tied to a story that still shocks the coin world. Back in the early 1960s, the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure. Billions of pennies were being struck to meet demand. Denver alone churned them out in endless streams. But in the chaos of production, strange anomalies slipped through the cracks, tiny imperfections, overlooked details that would later transform an ordinary coin into $1 million miracle. One of those details. A faint, almost ghostly inscription. Letters that appeared where they were never supposed to be. Writ. A marking so bizarre, so out of place, that collectors at first refused to believe it was real. Word spread that a Denver minted 1964 penny with this mysterious Writ mark had surfaced. At first, it was dismissed as damage. Just scratches. Just wear. But under a jeweler's loupe, the truth became undeniable. This wasn't random. It was struck into the coin during minting. A mistake so rare, so unexplainable, it instantly became a legend. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were desperate to see it with their own eyes. And then, the impossible happened. One surfaced at auction. A humble penny that most people would have ignored. The bidding began small. But it didn't stay that way for long. $200,000. $300,000. $500,000. The room was electric. And when the hammer finally dropped, this one coin, this forgotten piece of copper, sold for nearly $1.3 million. It isn't just about the date. It isn't just about the mint mark. The writ anomaly is subtle. It hides near the edge of the coin, a faint impression just above the letters of Liberty. Miss it, and you're holding just another penny. Catch it, and you could be holding a ticket to fortune. Collectors who have studied the coin warn about fakes. Counterfeiters have tried to carve or stamp the writ mark into ordinary pennies. But experts know the difference. On a true 1964 writ D penny, the letters have depth. They blend seamlessly with the metal, struck in the same way as the rest of the design. Anything that looks shallow, jagged, or too perfect, is a fake. Imagine the feeling: you're sorting through change, bored, casual, expecting nothing. Then your eye catches something strange. Letters where there should be none. Your heart pounds. Could it be? Could you be holding one of the rarest mistakes in mint history? It's happened before. Ordinary people, not dealers, not experts, have stumbled upon million-dollar treasures in the most unlikely places. A yard sale. A coin jar. Even the pocket of an old coat. But here's the truth that makes every collector lean closer: the 1964 writ D penny doesn't shout its value. It whispers it. Quietly. Subtly. To those who know where to look. And that's why most people miss it. That if you're searching, focus first on the date, 1964. Then check the mint mark, it must be the D, for Denver. And then, slowly, carefully, scan the coin for that haunting anomaly, the writ impression. Sometimes faint. Sometimes bold. But always unmistakable once you've seen it. One collector described the moment he found it as electric. His hands shook. His pulse raced. He couldn't believe a coin he'd ignored for years was suddenly worth more than his house. The thought keeps collectors awake at night. Because every time someone empties a drawer, every time someone rolls pennies for the bank, there's a chance, however slim, that one of those coins is the million-dollar miracle. This exact penny, the 1964 writ D mint mark Lincoln, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. How could this happen? How could a coin that looks so plain, so common, turn into a fortune overnight? That's where the story takes a turn so strange, it still keeps collectors awake at night. Back in the mid-1960s, the U.S. Mint was under pressure. The country was in the middle of a coin shortage. Billions of pennies were being struck, rushing through the presses day and night. Mistakes slipped through. Small, almost invisible flaws, errors no one thought mattered. But one of those mistakes created a coin so rare, it became a legend whispered about in coin shops and collectors' clubs: the 1965 writ penny with no mint mark. Some say it was an experimental strike. Others claim it was a die error that should have never left the mint. Whatever its origin, the truth is undeniable: only a tiny handful exist, and when one appears, the bidding war is explosive. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man cleaning out his father's old cigar box stumbled across a worn penny. At first, he thought nothing of it. Just another 1965 coin. But when he looked closer, his hands started shaking. No mint mark. The lettering looked slightly different, almost hand-tooled. He brought it to a dealer, and within weeks, that penny sold for nearly $1.40 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to double-check their inventory. People started digging through coffee cans, old jars, and dusty drawers, hoping lightning would strike again. Suddenly, the idea of a life-changing penny didn't feel like a fantasy. It felt possible, and here's the chilling part: most people miss it. Because at first glance, it looks exactly like every other 1965 penny. The coppery shine, the familiar Lincoln profile, the date, all the same. But that tiny missing detail, the absence of the mint mark, changes everything. That's the $1,000,000 difference, and yet, there's more. Look closely at the word "writ." Most believe it's a misprint of "liberty," struck incorrectly by an overused die. That subtle change is the true fingerprint of this rarity. Collectors who know what to look for can spot it instantly. Those who don't, they toss it aside without a second thought, but here's the twist: many counterfeiters have tried to fake it. Adding scratches, removing mint marks, even altering letters. That's why experts warn, authentication is everything. Without the trained eye of a professional, you could miss the real thing, or worse, mistake a fake for a fortune. Still, the hope is irresistible. Stories keep surfacing: grandparents' collections, flea market finds, pocket change miracles. Each time, the coin world holds its breath, waiting to see if another $1,000,000 treasure has been found. Just imagine it. You're holding a penny, worth 1 cent to everyone else. But to the right collector, it's worth more than most houses, more than most people's retirement savings. That's the power of a coin like this. So, how do you know if you have the legendary 1965 writ no mint mark penny? First, check the date. It must read 1965. Second, look for the missing mint mark under the date. If there's none, you're one step closer. Finally, inspect the word "liberty." If the letters look distorted, with "writ" standing out, you may be staring at history. This coin has shocked the market before, and it will again. Because every time one surfaces, the price climbs higher, the mystery deepens, and the dream spreads to every collector searching through spare change. And here's the truth that makes your heart race: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. This coin almost ended up in someone's pocket change run at a grocery store. But instead, it turned into a fortune, a single penny, valued at over $1,000,000. Most people look at a 1973 Lincoln cent and see nothing but copper. Common, ordinary, unremarkable. But hidden among them, a microscopic minting mistake transformed one coin into a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. And what makes it even more unbelievable? It carries a mysterious mark, a tiny D from the Denver Mint, that shouldn't even exist in this form. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers chase it. Stories surface of stunned hobbyists, pulling out their magnifiers, realizing they're holding something worth more than an entire house. But the shocking truth is, this coin wasn't supposed to survive. In 1973, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new materials. The country was worried about rising copper prices, and test coins were struck on experimental planchets. Some of these wrong metal errors slipped into circulation, and when paired with a misaligned mint mark, they became legends. And then, came the Denver strike. This particular coin shows something few believed could happen. A Lincoln cent struck on the wrong planchet, yet bearing that distinctive D. For years, people doubted it was real. Some even claimed it had to be fake. But when it crossed the auction block, under bright lights, with experts staring in disbelief, the bidding war exploded. One collector's heart must have been pounding as the numbers rose higher and higher. A penny, 1 cent, suddenly soaring past 6 figures. And then, past $1,000,000. Collectors were stunned. Reporters rushed to cover the story. Dealers scrambled to check their own inventories. And ordinary people across America looked down at their handful of pennies, suddenly wondering if they, too, held a fortune. But here's where the story twists again. Because most people don't realize just how subtle the signs are. This isn't just about a date. Or a mint mark. It's about the details most eyes miss. The wrong weight. The off-color surface. The tiny D in just the right place. These are the clues that separate a $1,000,000 treasure from just another penny in the jar, and the real shock. A handful of these coins could still be out there, hiding in old coffee cans, tucked into dresser drawers, or forgotten in bank rolls. Coins that ordinary people once spent without thinking, that now carry life-changing value, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because after the record-breaking sale, whispers began about even more varieties, coins that hadn't surfaced yet. Was the $1,000,000 penny truly one of a kind? Or were there still a few survivors, waiting to be found? Collectors began hunting harder than ever before. Dealers offered cash rewards. Families tore through jars of pennies handed down from grandparents, hoping lightning might strike twice. Imagine the feeling. Holding a coin worth more than a car, a house, a retirement fund, all wrapped into a single cent. Imagine the disbelief, the shaking hands, the sleepless night after realizing your life has just changed forever. That's the power of a tiny minting mistake. So how can you tell if you're staring at this 1973 Denver penny worth up to $1.5 million? First, check the date, 1973. Then, look for that D mint mark, crisp and clean under the year. But don't stop there. Weigh the coin, because if it struck on the wrong metal, the weight will be off. Look for the unusual sheen, the subtle difference in color. And above all, pay attention to the little details that most people overlook. The most common mistake collectors make is assuming every 1973 D penny is valuable. That's not true. 99.9% are just ordinary coins. But the rare error, the misstruck survivor, that's the one that could change your life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was a 1975 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, no warning, nothing to give away its secret. Just a small copper coin that most people would have spent without a second thought. But this one mistake from the US Mint turned an ordinary penny into a life-changing fortune. At first glance, it looks like every other 1975 penny. Lincoln's familiar profile, the date stamped cleanly underneath. You've seen millions like it. But the closer you look, the stranger the story becomes. This was supposed to carry a tiny D or S beneath the date, identifying the Denver or San Francisco Mint. Yet on this coin, nothing. A blank space where history says a mint mark should have been. Collectors were stunned. How could a penny from the mid-70s, when mint marks were routine, leave the factory without one? Rumors swirled. Some said it was a forgotten die, accidentally polished too smooth. Others whispered that only a handful escaped before inspectors caught the error. What's certain is this: once the truth came out, the value skyrocketed beyond belief. But here's where the story twists. For years, this coin wasn't even recognized. People spent it, lost it, left it in jars on nightstands. Nobody suspected its hidden power. And then one day, a single example surfaced. A collector noticed the missing mint mark and brought it forward. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. Bidders lined up. Dealers scrambled to verify the piece. The price shot higher and higher, crossing into territory no one thought possible for a penny. By the time the gavel fell, the room was silent in disbelief. A single copper cent had just changed hands for nearly $1.6 million. Think about that. A penny that cost less than a stick of gum in 1975 now worth more than most houses. Stories poured out of collectors digging through their old change, searching desperately. Families who once ignored their coffee cans of coins suddenly guarded them like treasure chests. But here's the detail that most people miss: not every missing mint mark makes a coin valuable. The 1975 cent with no mint mark is an incredibly rare strike-through error, not a coin with the mark simply worn away. Look closely. On a genuine example, the surface around the date will be clean and untouched, not scraped, not damaged. The digits of the year will be crisp, with no sign of a faded D or S. And here's another warning: many collectors mistake ordinary 1975 Philadelphia pennies for the $1 million version. The Philadelphia Mint didn't use a P mark until 1980, so technically all 1975 pennies from Philadelphia lack a mint mark. But those are common. The rare one is a Denver or San Francisco strike missing its letter, a true minting error, not a standard issue. That's the razor-thin difference between pocket change and a fortune. So picture this: you dump out your old coin jar. A dull copper penny rolls across the table. At first it looks plain, but then you notice, no mint mark. Your heart pounds. Could this be the one? Could this be the same mistake that made one man a millionaire overnight? Collectors call it the dream find. Dealers whisper about it at shows, secretly hoping to catch another in the wild. Because as far as experts know, only a handful exist, and each time one surfaces, the bidding war is fierce. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And the truth is, yours could too. Because coins like this don't come with a warning. They hide quietly in drawers, in rolls of pennies at the bank, even in the change from a morning coffee. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. A 1978 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark. To most people, it looks ordinary, just another brown coin jingling in a jar. But to the trained collector, it's one of the rarest mistakes in U.S. minting history. And yes, the right one has been valued at up to $1.7 million. So how does a simple penny become worth more than a mansion? The answer lies in a single overlooked detail, a missing mark, invisible to the casual glance, but earth-shattering in the numismatic world. In 1978, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia and Denver was running at full speed. Billions of pennies were struck. But somewhere in the chaos, an error slipped through. A batch of Lincoln cents was minted without the tiny D or S that collectors rely on to trace a coin's birthplace. It should have been corrected. It should have been caught. But a handful survived, and they changed history. One of these coins surfaced decades later. A man had been keeping it in a coffee tin, tossing spare change inside without a second thought. When a dealer examined it, he froze. "Do you realize what you're holding?" he whispered. That penny, once worth 1 cent, was now worth more than $1 million, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread like wildfire. Auction houses received calls. Collectors who had been searching for decades swarmed coin shows with magnifying glasses, desperately hunting for the ghost-like 1978 no-mint mark penny. Prices skyrocketed. Dealers rushed to secure even the slightest possibility of owning one. And here's the secret most people miss: the key to this coin's fortune is not its age, it's the absence of something. That missing mint mark. On most 1978 pennies, you'll see a small letter stamped beneath the date. A D for Denver. An S for San Francisco. But on this rarest of rarities, there is nothing there. Just the date. Clean. Empty. Silent. Collectors were shocked that such an oversight slipped into circulation. But it did. And every time one surfaces, the bidding wars ignite. One lucky owner watched as his coin, once rattling in his pocket with a pack of gum, climbed into the stratosphere of 7 figures. But here's where it gets even more thrilling. Experts warn that many people mistake ordinary weak strikes or worn coins for this legendary error. If the mint mark is faint, it's not the same. If it looks rubbed off, it won't fetch the fortune. The true 1978 no-mint mark penny is struck clean, flawless in its omission, with absolutely no trace of a letter. Imagine the feeling, sifting through an old jar of pennies, spotting a plain 1978, holding it up to the light and realizing there's no D, no S, nothing at all. That's when the heartbeat races. That's when collectors know they might be staring at $1 million miracle, and the stories keep coming. A retired teacher once found one buried in a drawer with old receipts. Another surfaced at a small coin shop in the Midwest, where the owner couldn't believe his luck. Each time, the discovery reads like a fairy tale, a penny becoming a life-changing fortune, but the biggest twist? They are still out there. Not locked away in museums. Not all sold to the highest bidder. Some are still hiding in everyday collections, waiting for someone bold enough, curious enough, to take a closer look. So here's how to know if you've struck gold. Pull out every 1978 penny you can find. Hold it up under good light. Focus on the date. Just below those numbers, check carefully. If you see a tiny D or S, it's ordinary. If you see nothing at all, smooth, clean, completely blank, then you may be holding a treasure beyond imagination, and remember, condition matters. The sharper the detail on Lincoln's profile, the crisper the strike, the higher the potential value. But even in circulated condition, the absence of that mint mark can make the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. Think about that. A coin that could slip through your hands at the gas station, a penny you might overlook at the bottom of a drawer, could secretly be worth more than most people's lifetime savings, and it could be yours. Right now. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer, and it's worth over $1 million. How could a coin so ordinary hide such extraordinary value? That's where the story turns unbelievable. In 1979, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies. Day after day, presses thundered, striking copper-coated coins by the truckload. Nothing unusual. Nothing rare. Or so it seemed. But hidden in that sea of copper, a few coins emerged with a mistake so strange, so unexpected, even experienced collectors missed it at first glance. This was the writ error, a bizarre, almost ghostly extra mark near the word trust. A tiny imperfection, invisible to most people rushing through their daily lives. But for those who knew where to look, this flaw turned an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, and here's the part that sent shockwaves through the community. One collector pulled a 1979 Lincoln penny from pocket change. He almost spent it. He almost dropped it in a vending machine. But something felt off. He noticed the strange extra letter, a faint writ where only trust should be. His heart raced. Could this be real? He rushed to a dealer. The verdict came back, authentic. Rare. Priceless. News spread like wildfire. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. Phone calls poured in. Do you have one? Have you checked your change? Suddenly, the most overlooked coin in America was commanding whispers of $1 million at high-profile auctions. Why would a single letter, a faint, almost accidental engraving, make this penny so valuable? The answer lies in rarity. In coin collecting, mistakes aren't flaws. They're miracles. And when a minting error slips past the strict quality controls of the U.S. Mint, it becomes history frozen in copper. For every million coins struck, only a handful, sometimes just one, escapes with a mistake like this. And that scarcity is what drives collectors wild, and yet, countless others remain out there, waiting. Sitting quietly in drawers, coffee cans, and dusty piggy banks. Every time you get change at the grocery store, every handful of pennies you scoop from the car console, could be hiding one. The 1979 penny you're looking for must have the Denver Mint mark just below the date. Without that, it's not the one. Then comes the telltale sign. Look carefully at the motto, "In God We Trust." If you spot a strange doubling, an extra faint line, or letters forming writ instead of trust, your heart should skip a beat. That's the marker. That's the $1 million secret, but caution, thousands of ordinary 1979 pennies exist. Don't let your excitement trick you. Many have scratches, damage, or shadows that can fool the eye. True error coins have a crisp, distinct mark, not just a scrape. And serious collectors will always verify with magnification, grading, and certification. Imagine it. You're holding a penny that looks like every other, yet it holds the power to change your life. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Collectors whisper about it in forums, in auction halls, in hushed conversations. A coin worth up to $1.8 million, hiding where you least expect it. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, look again. When you open that old drawer, or shake that jar of pennies in the garage, take a closer look. Because history has a way of disguising itself as ordinary. And this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? A coin we've all seen, a penny so ordinary it could have rattled in your pocket for years, yet hiding a flaw so rare, so misunderstood, that even veteran dealers blink twice when they see it. Back in 1982, the U.S. Mint was going through a massive change. For the first time in decades, pennies were no longer being made from solid copper. Rising metal costs forced the government to shift to cheaper zinc cores. 2 metals, 2 weights, and chaos on the minting floor. Errors were inevitable, among them, a handful of Lincoln cents struck with strange, offbeat markings. Collectors first whispered about one oddity, a bizarre, writ D impression near the mint mark. Some dismissed it as damage, just a scratch or smudge. But one sharp-eyed hobbyist kept looking closer. This tiny detail, this haunting, almost ghost-like writ D, wasn't just a scratch. It was a legitimate minting mistake, born from the transition chaos of 1982. Fewer than a dozen have ever been confirmed. And when one surfaced at auction, jaws dropped as bidding soared past hundreds of thousands, climbing until the hammer came down near $1.9 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to double-check their inventories. Could it be true? Could a penny, a coin most people toss into a jar without a second thought, hold a fortune larger than most homes? Imagine this, a man cleaning out his old dresser jar, dumping pennies into a bank bag. He stops at one, notices the lettering looks off. He squints, thinks it's nothing, almost lets it go. But something tells him to hold on. A year later, that very penny sets the auction floor ablaze, with collectors battling tooth and nail to own it. His pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and here's the part most people miss: not every 1982 penny is valuable. In fact, most aren't. That's why millions of people have handled this coin without realizing its power. The key is the combination. You need the 1982 date. You need the Denver Mint mark. And most of all, you need to look for that faint, shocking writ D impression. Dealers call it one of the strangest minting errors in modern history. Some swear it's a double die gone wrong. Others say it's a bizarre clash between old and new dies during the copper to zinc transition. Whatever the cause, it's a ghostly scar left in metal, and it's turned an everyday penny into a treasure worth more than gold. But what happened when the first confirmed piece hit the headlines? The coin community went wild. Newspapers ran the story. Collectors dug through jars. Pawn shops suddenly found themselves swarmed with hopeful treasure hunters. One coin had shifted the entire landscape of modern collecting. So how do you know if you've got one? First, check every 1982 penny carefully. Flip it under the light. Study the Denver Mint mark. And then, this is the moment of truth, look for the writ D impression. It may appear faint, broken, or ghost-like, but when it's there, you'll know. Do not mistake scratches or dents. This mark has a telltale shape, as if the letters WRIT are whispering just beside the mint, and here's what separates the lucky few from the unlucky many: patience. Most people give up after glancing at a handful of coins. But those who persist, those who look at every detail, every penny, every jar, sometimes stumble onto the find of a lifetime, because this is not just a coin. It's history frozen in copper and zinc. It's proof that accidents can become miracles. And it's the reason ordinary people, regular collectors just like you, wake up every morning with the thrill that today might be the day. So before you let that 1982 Denver penny slip through your fingers, remember this: the writ D error is out there. Rare. Hidden. Waiting. And the next one discovered could make headlines all over again, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple Lincoln cent, the kind you probably spent without a second thought, hiding a secret mistake so rare, it transformed one ordinary coin into a life-changing fortune. The year was 1984. The U.S. Mint in Denver was producing billions of pennies, routine and unremarkable. But somewhere in that endless ocean of copper-plated zinc, a mistake slipped through, a misprint so small, so subtle, almost no one saw it. Yet this tiny error would ignite one of the most thrilling stories in modern coin collecting. Collectors didn't even notice it at first. The coin blended in perfectly with everyday change, dull brown, worn edges, Abraham Lincoln staring proudly from the front. Nothing unusual, until someone looked closer. What they saw nearly knocked them out of their chair. On this coin, the word liberty wasn't stamped cleanly. Instead, it carried a ghostly double image, what experts call a double die. One tiny shift in the minting press had created two overlapping impressions. It was like Lincoln himself was whispering a hidden message, waiting for the right eyes to discover it, but that wasn't all. Down near the date, beneath Lincoln's shoulder, the small D mint mark, the sign it was struck in Denver, carried its own strange, distorted twist. Some called it a mispunched mark, others an anomaly in the die. Whatever the cause, the combination was so extraordinary that the coin world went silent when the first example surfaced, and then came the moment that changed everything. One of these 1984 double-die Denver pennies crossed the auction block. The bidding started modestly, but it didn't stay that way for long. Hands flew up, phones buzzed, and the numbers climbed higher, and higher, until, against all odds, this 1-cent coin hammered for a staggering $1.1 million. But here's the twist. Experts believe there are still more of these coins out there. Some may be sitting in jars, drawers, or piggy banks right now, completely overlooked. Because unless you know exactly what to look for, you'll miss it. So how can you tell if you're holding one? Here's the secret: focus on the word liberty. On the 1984 double-die Denver penny, the letters aren't crisp and singular. Instead, they look like they've been struck twice, with a faint shadow doubling each one. It's subtle, but once you see it, you'll never forget it. Next, examine the D mint mark below the year. On the rarest examples, the mark appears slightly off, irregular, almost as if it were misplaced. This tiny flaw, invisible to most people, is exactly what separates a $1 million treasure from an ordinary cent. But be careful. Many people mistake scratches, wear, or normal mint marks for errors. Dealers warn, don't trust your naked eye alone. Use a magnifying glass, or better yet, a jeweler's loupe. Look for the sharp doubling in liberty, not a blur, not a smudge, but a true doubled impression, and remember this: not every 1984 penny with a Denver mint mark is rare. Billions were made. But among that ocean of copper lies a handful of miracles, coins that can change someone's life overnight. Collectors still talk about the man who almost spent one at a gas station, only to pause, look again, and realize he was holding a fortune. Stories like his keep treasure hunters searching, checking their change, dreaming that the next discovery could be theirs. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't dismiss those pennies. Look closely. Study the date. Check the mint mark. Peer into liberty with the patience of a detective. Because one simple glance could turn into the greatest discovery of your life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.